Hi, welcome. On this video, I want to take a few minutes to respond by way, again, of a very popular balanced dog trainer on social media. Goes by the name of Robert Cabral, pictured here. And I want to add to the conversation regarding just the divisiveness that's happening. Again, I put a lot of video content talking about the reasons why you're seeing all the back and forth, all the infighting, all the divisiveness, the slander between these two groups of trainers, balanced, force free, but even within the groups themselves, that again seek to throw each other under the ideological bus for a few more views and likes to gain popularity. I talk about the whole issue about popularity based again on this inherently flawed idea that training is a learning-based exercise. Once a relationship problem is already underway between a dog and owner, I talk about how that sets up for many dogs and owners a counterfeit picture change within the framework of response. And I talk about the criteria in terms of a intentional interaction-based method that changes perceptions of dogs the right way in terms of diminishment of unwanted behavioral issues. And again, I would encourage you to check out my Facebook page where I put, as I call it, the question of the century at the very top, pinned to the top of the page, which goes to the heart of the issue that's happening in the dog training community. But here, again, I want to add to the conversation, offer another perspective as to why this is all happening, because what you're seeing here on social media, you're not finding answers. Okay, you're not going to be able to get clarity. And meanwhile, the dog training world continues to come apart at the seams. So I want to play some of this. This is Robert Cabral talking about just dog trainers fighting with each other on social media.
I love how sometimes people on the internet, they say, dogs don't speak.
Sorry about that. Here we go.
I hate getting roped into these things. And when there's a controversy, I don't like it. I hate conflict. I really do. But in this situation, I'm going to just say a couple quick things. So there's two trainers that got into a little spat. One trainer was training a dog who, he said was aggressive, using these techniques. Oh, I never needed to use aversive techniques, and it just all worked with, positive techniques and stuff like that.
Now stop it here. Now, I want to would encourage people to pay attention. Okay, and this comes out of the balanced dog training community. How I talk about balanced dog trainers, they don't actually provide clarity as to what represents training that way in terms of calling out, okay, or focusing in on what the issue is. In fact, it's interesting what you see here is they give, and you'll see it right here, they give those who identify as force-free dog trainers a hall pass. Okay, they will on one hand, right, say, well, yeah, that's you can go a long way with using treats and the force-free way of doing things, and you can, it's not a problem. However, to balance, so it's just this whole thing of trying to play both sides of the fence. Okay, I talk about this. In fact, I'd encourage you to watch a video on my YouTube channel where a balanced dog trainer, Jamie Penrith, goes on Good Morning Britain, and he's challenged on when it gets to this whole thing about trying to reconcile the use of a aversive through using remote collars. You'll see the build up to that moment where he's challenged on that, and even the hosts say, well, we're not convinced, and the hosts really representing the public. They're sitting there listening to both sides. And so the issue with balanced dog training is because, and I talk about, Robert Cabral, the statement he made a while back, talk about, science has no place in dog training. But that is a total contradictory statement based on the fact that balanced dog trainers have built on this idea by way of called the four quadrants. Okay, they built on this idea that training is in fact a learning-based exercise. They use treats. If you watch Robert Cabral's videos, how he engages at the front end, okay, in the middle of a relationship problem with these dogs, how he engages, okay, the dog to motivate the dog to respond, while assuming that those responses can be trusted. Okay, that those responses are, represent that good things are happening. The dog goes into a sit, the dog responds, right? And understand the whole dog training world is based on this premise, which is totally inherently flawed. Okay, I talk about why it is that you're going to a dog training in the first place, based on a relationship problem. And when trainers engage this way, what they're doing is they're setting you up to be deceived. I talk about the difference between how I approach a relationship problem, okay, in terms of what am I doing right away. I'm approaching it as a intervention. Okay, it becomes a type of a power play, but a type of power play that speaks the right language. Okay, it is about a dog coming into agreement with, making sense. So it's not about conflict that way. Because here's the thing, you have to bring those core ingredients and they have to be reconciled. Talk about influence and control brought into alignment. Okay, they have to come in the right levels. They have to come in. They have to be consistent in how they align, how they come in, and that conversation has to hold together. Okay, for a period of time, because it is about relationship. It is about change. I talk about all these themes, but understand that through balanced dog training and force-free training, they're not engaging in the right conversation. Okay, they're engaging in this. I talk about bribery. They're engaging in this type of using a motivating agent, right, to do what exactly? Okay, to get a dog to respond. But again, that's why I keep talking about the parenting example. I mean, if you're a parent, this will make sense. You're dealing with a relationship problem with a selfish child, and you were to just at that level, in a very superficial way, just motivate some superficial responses, and they could be good responses. Child could be doing certain things that would be considered just from at a surface level, good things are happening. But you have to ask yourself the question, is that all it's really about in terms of your role as a parent, in terms of how you're engaging a relationship problem? Okay, I talk about parental influence, right? Issue about control at that level with a child. It doesn't mean about, and this is the problem here in the dog training world, and this is where I get in this whole thing about the inability for these trainers who are so superficially focused, when you get a certain reaction with the dog because you're doing it differently, they're not able to reconcile the responses properly to the relationship, right? They will immediately, this is where that whole bonker situation happened with Gelman and the bonker. Why do you think that firestorm happened? Why do you think all these, just as many balanced dog trainers piled onto that situation as force-free, right? I mean, there's certain things that you should be looking at saying, well, that's interesting, and we need to look at. Now, that's not a defense of Gelman. In fact, I talk about the confusion of balanced dog training, but that's an example, an illustration of the confusion. You can watch my video on that. I show the right way, okay, to engage a relationship problem with any dog. But I go through it, so I don't just talk about it, I actually show it. And I encourage you to check out my YouTube channel. I should put out lots of content with me interacting with dogs, showing exactly how to approach a relationship problem, but not this way.
And whether it did or not, I don't know. I watched some of the videos, but I don't have time to watch everybody's videos. If it did, great, right? But remember, it worked great.
Saying he doesn't have time to watch everyone. He's on social media a lot. Okay, this popped up in my feed. So understand these trainers. That's the thing. Okay, so many contradictions. They'll say that's where they gain all their views and their popularity. Is the fact they're putting out these videos on social media. Okay, they're all over social media. So yeah, they don't have time to watch everyone's videos because they're putting out so many of their own. Okay, and they're trying to jump on every podcast possible.
Right on that dog. And after you've done this with 10, 50, 100 dogs, then let me know, and then we'll consider it.
See, after you've done it with 10, 50, 100 dogs, let me know. See, there's no clarity, right? That's what you see with these balanced dog trainers. They're not actually like I do. I call it out. I say, well, hold on here a second. Training's not a learning-based exercise. There's a line in the sand. You don't want to use treats and motivate dogs the way that Cabral and all these other trainers do. This is why they can't call it out. They can't push it back, right? They're caught. I talk about they're caught in this catch-22 scenario. They can't get out of it. Okay, people have to understand they cannot get out of it.
That's not the issue, though. Someone else got on it and criticized him for this training, and that's not even the issue. But here's what the issue is. It resorted to name-calling.
So here we go. Name. So now he's, and again, this is the problem. I want to talk about this. Okay. So now he's not happy, with the name calling. Okay, but you go and I talk about this. In fact, Cabral himself. Okay, a situation with another trainer, and I posted a video on this a while back, and it's in an email, and just the name call. Okay, so just the hypocrisy here with these trainers will engage in the same type of name calling, the back and forth, and then they try to call out, they're trying to criticize something that they themselves are doing. But see, understand this is all wrapped up in this whole problem here in the dog training world. I'll talk about the big lie. Okay, when you embrace a lie, and what's the lie? That trains a learning-based exercise. Okay, once you embrace the lie, it's game on. Okay, it's going to bring about confusion. It's going to bring about hostility. It's going to bring about name calling. It's going to bring about trainers like just throwing each other under the bus. It brings on all of it, all the bad stuff that you're seeing.
And name calling is just not cool, right? Don't intimidate people. Don't cyberbully people.
Just total hypocrisy.
It's bullshit. Now, this ended up going into the context of calling somebody gay and, a transsexual or something like that. And the person's not either one, I don't believe. And it doesn't matter if the person was, but you don't do that. Right? I wish I had both of you guys sitting in front of me, because I guarantee you I'm at least as old as both of you guys put together.
So now trying to come off like he's going to be like the peacemaker. So here's the problem. Okay, you can't be a peacemaker. Okay, and I talk about all the virtue signaling here. You see all these trainers on there calling out all these, some of the, I talk about the low hanging fruit, where they're calling out certain situations or trying to, that are obvious situations of, say, physical abuse. But at the same time, the very idea that they're marketing is putting dogs and owners in a very bad position. I talk about that. It's total hypocrisy. It's total nothing more than virtue signaling, and they're all doing it. All of them are doing it. So, to sit back and try to say, well, if I was sitting in front of you, I would try to, I mean, it's so ridiculous. I understand the dog training world is so ridiculous. It's so turned over. But why? Well, it's because of embracing this lie that puts dogs and owners in a really bad position. It brings on all the confusion. This is the reason for the hall pass, right? Balanced dog trainers, they can't call out force-free trainers because they're joined at the hip. Okay, they're joined at the hip. They approach a relationship problem the exact same way. They jump in exactly the same way. Just look at it. I talk about this. So again, I talk about the real issue here. So all to say that you see in social media, look at the mess. So here he's talking about a situation where these trainers are going after each other on social media. He's trying to be like the peacemaker. You can't be a peacemaker when you've embraced the very lie that brings all this stuff on. You can't call out that which you have come into agreement with. I mean, that's the bottom line. Okay, that is the bottom line. So the dog training world, it's getting messier, it's getting worse, and there's a reason for it. Okay, there's a reason for it, and don't take my word for anything. You can go on social media, do your, take your time, look at all the mess. I've done a complete series, flipping the script. Go watch my series on this. But I just don't talk about it, the mess. I talk about the solution. These trainers, they're not talking about the solution. They can't talk about the solution. Understand that they've already sold out. They've sold their souls to this idea. They're making money off of it. They're on social media. And so they're trying to play all sides of the fence, right? That's all they're doing. It's a complete joke. Thanks for watching.